Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in a small village called Mvezo, in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. His family was part of the Tembu royal family, which made him a child of important ancestry. But Mandela didn't grow up like a prince. His father lost his position in the local government, and the family moved to a village called Kunu. There, Mandela spent his early childhood playing with other boys, herding animals, and learning about the customs of his people. From a young age, Mandela was curious and thoughtful. He listened closely when elders spoke about justice, fairness, and leadership. Even though he lived in a peaceful village, the world outside was very different. South Africa was ruled by a white minority government, and they had created a system called Apartheid. Under Apartheid, black people had very few rights. They could not vote, travel freely, or even live in certain areas. This unfair system would shape the rest of Mandela's life. Mandela was the first in his family to go to school. On his first day, his teacher gave him the English name Nelson, because it was common at the time to give African children European names. He later went to boarding schools and eventually attended the University of Fort Hare, one of the few places black South Africans could receive a higher education. At Fort Hare, Mandela got into trouble for joining a student protest and was expelled, but he didn't give up. He moved to Johannesburg, where he worked in a mine as a guard and later studied law. Johannesburg opened his eyes even more to the terrible unfairness of apartheid. He met other young people who wanted to fight against it, not with violence but with courage, unity, and hope. The turning point in Mandela's life came when he joined the African National Congress, ANC. The ANC was a group that wanted to change the laws of South Africa and give equal rights to all races. At first, they tried peaceful protests. Mandela gave speeches, marched in demonstrations, and organized boycotts. But the government refused to listen. They banned protests, arrested leaders, and used violence to stop change. Eventually, Mandela and others in the ANC believed they had no choice but to start a secret part of the group that would sabotage government property, not to hurt people, but to send a message. This was a very hard decision for Mandela. He loved peace, but he hated injustice even more. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. He would spend the next 27 years behind bars, much of it on the lonely and cold Robben Island. Life on Robben Island was harsh. Mandela had to do hard labor, breaking rocks in a quarry. The prison was freezing in winter and scorching in summer. The food was bad, and he was only allowed one visitor every 6 months. But Mandela never lost hope. He exercised every day, studied, and encouraged other prisoners to stay strong. He treated prison guards with respect, even when they treated him badly. Slowly, some guards began to admire him. Mandela became a symbol of resistance. Even though he was locked away, the world could not forget him. People all over the globe protested for his freedom. They sang songs, wore buttons, and marched in the streets with signs that said, "Free Nelson Mandela." Finally, in 1990, after 27 years, Nelson Mandela was released from prison. He was older, but his spirit was just as strong. Instead of seeking revenge, he called for peace and forgiveness. 4 years later, in 1994, something incredible happened. For the first time in South African history, people of all races were allowed to vote. Millions stood in long lines to cast their vote. And when the results were announced, Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. He didn't want power for himself. He wanted to build a new country where everyone could live together in peace. He created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to help the country heal from its painful past. He worked with people who had once called him an enemy. He believed that love was strong, that love was stronger than hate. Nelson Mandela's presidency was filled with hard choices, but he always tried to do what was right. He focused on education, health, and human rights. He stepped down after just one term, saying that the country needed to move forward with new leaders. He continued to work for peace around the world. He started the Nelson Mandela Foundation to support children, schools, and people in need. He met with world leaders, gave speeches, and kept inspiring others until his death in 2013. Mandela once said, "It always seems impossible until it is done." Those words remind us that big change can come from small steps, and that courage can live in quiet strength. Lessons from Mandela's journey. 1. He showed courage by standing up against unfairness, even when it put his life in danger. 2. He showed forgiveness by choosing peace. over anger after 27 years in prison. 3. He showed leadership by bringing people together instead of pushing them apart. 4. He showed perseverance by never giving up, even when the fight seemed endless. A hero for the whole world. Mandela lived through one of the darkest times in South Africa's history and helped lead it into a new era of hope. He is remembered not just as a South African hero, but as a global symbol of peace, strength, and justice. His life story is a reminder that no matter where you come from, you can stand up for what's right. You can be kind even when others are not. And you can make a difference, not just for yourself, but for millions. Final thought for young readers. You don't need to be a president to change the world. Start with kindness. Stand up when you see something unfair. Be brave even when it's hard. Just like Nelson Mandela, your choices can inspire others. Inspirational takeaway. Real heroes are not the ones who never fall, but the ones who get back up and lift others with them. What motivational lessons can we learn from this story? Nelson Mandela's story is not just about politics or history. It's about the strength of the human spirit. From growing up in a small village to becoming a global symbol of peace and justice, Mandela's life teaches us that real change begins within. His journey was long and painful, filled with sacrifice, but he never gave up on his dream of a fair and united South Africa. Both children and adults can find inspiration in how he faced hardship with dignity and led with heart, not hate. Here are 5 powerful motivational lessons we can learn from Nelson Mandela's life. 1. Stand up for what's right. Even when it's hard, Mandela saw unfairness all around him and chose not to stay silent. He spoke out against injustice even when it cost him his freedom. His courage shows us that doing the right thing often isn't easy, but it's always worth it. Whether you're facing a bully at your school or unfairness at work, stand firm for what's right. 2. Forgiveness is stronger than revenge. After spending 27 years in prison, Mandela forgave those who locked him away. He didn't let bitterness control his heart. Instead, he worked with his former enemies to build a better future. This teaches us that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's powerful. Holding on to anger holds us back, but letting go can heal not just us, but others too. 3. Never let your circumstances define you. Mandela was born into a world where the system said he could never be equal, but he never believed that lie. Even in prison, he kept learning, thinking, and dreaming of a new South Africa. No matter where you start in life, your future is shaped by your mindset and actions, not your surroundings. 4. Patience and perseverance. Make big dreams possible. Change didn't come quickly for Mandela. He waited decades, suffered deeply, and lost many personal moments. But he kept going. His story reminds us that great things often take time. Whether it's learning a skill, reaching a goal, or making a difference, don't give up just because it's hard or slow. 5. One person can change the world. Mandela didn't have superpowers. He had strong beliefs, a kind heart, and the will to keep fighting for others. His life proves that one person can start a movement and inspire millions. You don't have to be famous to make a difference. Start by helping one person, speaking one truth, or standing up in one moment and watch the ripples grow. These lessons remind us that leadership begins with values, and true strength is found in kindness, purpose, and never giving up. Nelson Mandela's journey shows that even the longest walk can lead to the brightest freedom. Nelson Mandela's life was not easy, but it was full of meaning. He faced unfair laws, deep racism, and spent 27 long years in prison. But through it all, he never gave up hope. He never let pain turn him bitter. Instead, he used his struggles to build a better future, not just for himself, but for his entire country. He showed the world that even when everything seems dark, you can still be a light. For children, his story teaches that no matter how small you feel, your voice matters. Even if you're just one person, you can speak out, be kind, and make fair choices. For teenagers and adults, Mandela's journey is a reminder that true change takes patience, courage, and a heart that refuses to give up. No matter how tough the road gets, Mandela once said, "I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying." This means you don't have to be perfect to do something great. You just have to keep going, keep believing, and keep trying to do what's right. In the end, Nelson Mandela walked a long road to freedom, but he didn't walk it just for himself. He walked it for millions. And now his story invites you to begin your own journey with courage, hope, and a dream worth fighting for.